The pink bridesmaid dress felt like a costume I never wanted to wear. I stood there watching my sister Emma signal the security guards with a subtle nod, her perfectly manicured finger pointing directly at me. "You're not family anymore," she declared, loud enough for the entire reception to hear. But what Emma doesn't know is that their smirks won't last long. In fact, what happened next would turn her luxurious wedding into something she'd never forget. My name is Madison, and I've spent 28 years being the forgotten daughter. You know that feeling when you're standing in a room full of people who share your DNA, but you might as well be invisible? That's been my entire existence in the Parker family. It started when I was 7 and Emma was 5. My birthday party got cancelled because Emma caught a cold and needed all of Mommy's attention. I remember sitting on my bed, staring at the birthday cake we never cut, wondering what I'd done wrong. Mum said we'd celebrate later, but later never came. Emma's birthday, 2 months after, was a grand affair with a bouncy castle and 30 kids from her preschool. The pattern continued through high school. When I made honour roll, dinner conversation focused on Emma's finger painting winning the elementary school art contest. When I got accepted to Stanford with a partial scholarship, the celebration lasted exactly 10 minutes before shifting to Emma's upcoming ballet recital. College graduation was supposed to be different. 4 years of pre-med, countless sleepless nights, and finally walking across that stage with my Bachelor of Science. I scanned the audience, searching for familiar faces, empty seats where my family should have been. Later, I found out Emma had a severe stomachache that day, and naturally, Mom and Dad couldn't possibly leave their precious youngest daughter alone. The phone call came 2 hours after the ceremony. "Sweetie, I'm so sorry we missed it." Mum's voice carried that familiar tone of distracted concern. "Emma really needed us today. You understand, don't you? You're the strong one, Madison. You always have been." Strong. That's what they called it when I learned to swallow my disappointment and paste on a smile. Strong meant I didn't get to be hurt when they forgot my medical school acceptance letter on the kitchen counter for 3 days before anyone mentioned it. Strong meant pretending it didn't matter when the cow spent my college fund on Emma's emergency car after she totaled her first one. But the real breaking point came 2 years ago when Grandma Rose passed away. I was the one who spent weekends with her during her final months, reading her romance novels and listening to stories about Grandpa's courtship letters from World War II. Emma visited twice, both times to ask for money for her various ventures that never quite panned out. Grandma Rose had been the only person who truly saw me. She remembered my birthday without Facebook reminders, asked about my residency applications, and actually listened when I talked about my dreams of becoming a surgeon. When she got sick, I rearranged my entire schedule to be there. The day before she died, she squeezed my hand with what little strength she had left. "Madison, sweetheart, I've made sure you'll be taken care of. You've given so much love and received so little recognition. That changes now." I thought she meant her love and final words. I had no idea she meant something far more substantial. The will reading happened 3 weeks after the funeral. I sat in Mr. Thompson's oak-panelled office, surrounded by family members who only acknowledged my presence with cold nods. Emma wore black Prada, a dress that cost more than my monthly rent, and kept checking her phone during the lawyer's preliminary remarks. Rose Parker's will is quite specific, Mr. Thompson began, adjusting his glasses. To my granddaughter Emma, I leave my jewellery collection, including the pearl necklace from Paris and the diamond earrings from Tiffany & Co., valued at approximately $50,000. Emma straightened up, smiling for the first time since we'd arrived. Mum squeezed her hand encouragingly. To my granddaughter Madison, Mr. Thompson continued, and I prepared myself for some token amount or maybe Grandma's recipe collection. I leave the remainder of my estate, including the family home at 1247 Oak Street, the rental property on Maple Avenue, my investment portfolio valued at $1.8 million, and the words seemed to echo in the suddenly silent room. Emma's face went white, then red, then a mottled combination of both. Dad's mouth actually fell open. Mum looked like she'd been slapped. There must be some mistake, Mum finally managed. Mother always said Emma was her special girl. She told us Emma would inherit the house. Mr. Thompson consulted his papers again. Mrs. Parker was very clear about her intentions. She specifically noted that Madison has shown consistent love and dedication, while Emma has shown interest primarily in monetary gain. The will is ironclad and was witnessed by 3 independent parties. The ride home was Arctic silence. Emma stared out the window, tears of rage streaming down her perfectly contoured cheeks. Dad gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. Mom sat in the passenger seat, shaking her head and muttering about ungrateful children and manipulating a sick old woman. You did this, Emma finally spoke when we pulled into the driveway. You brainwashed her. You spent all that time with her just to steal what should have been mine. I spent time with her because I loved her, I replied quietly. I never asked for anything. Right, Emma scoffed, and I suppose you're going to pretend you didn't know she was loaded. The truth was, I hadn't known. Grandma Rose lived modestly, drove a 15-year-old Honda, and clipped coupons religiously. She never spoke about money except to worry about having enough for her medications. The revelation that she was actually wealthy stunned me as much as anyone. But my family didn't want to hear explanations. Over the following months, I became the villain in their narrative. Family dinners turned into Arctic affairs where conversation stopped when I entered the room. Holiday invitations came with passive-aggressive conditions. We're having Christmas dinner at 2, but we understand if you're too busy counting your money to join your family. Emma's engagement to Robert Cambridge III was announced 6 months later. The Cambridge family owned a chain of luxury hotels across the East Coast, and Robert had never worked a day that wasn't handed to him on a silver platter. They met at some charity gala where Emma was modelling for a fashion show she'd bought her way into. The engagement party was my first clue about how deeply I'd been excommunicated. I found out about it from Emma's Instagram post. 300 people celebrating at the country club. And I learned about it from social media like any other random follower. When I called Mom to ask why I hadn't been invited, her response was clinical. Oh, sweetheart, we just assumed you wouldn't want to come. You've been so distant lately. And Emma wanted to keep it small. Small. 300 people was small, but her own sister didn't make the cut. Wedding planning was even worse. Emma hired a coordinator, a florist, a band, and apparently everyone in the continental United States except her own sister. I learned about venue selections, dress fittings, and cake tastings the same way strangers did, through Emma's carefully curated social media presence. 2 weeks before the wedding, a bridesmaid dress appeared on my doorstep with a note: "Madison, you'll be in the wedding party. Dress size 8. Don't be late for photos. Emma." No phone call, no conversation, no "Would you like to be in my wedding?" Just an assumption that I'd show up and play my assigned role in her perfect day. The dress was a hideous shade of pink that looked like Pepto-Bismol had an accident with a tulle factory. I stared at that dress hanging in my closet for 2 weeks, debating whether to show up at all. Part of me wanted to skip the entire event, to finally draw a line and say enough. But another part of me, the part that still remembered finger painting with Emma when we were kids, the part that had braided her hair for school pictures and taught her to ride a bike, that part couldn't give up hope that maybe, somehow, this wedding could be a bridge back to being sisters again. So I showed up. I put on the ridiculous pink dress, did my own makeup because nobody told me about the group session, and arrived at the venue 40 minutes before the ceremony started. The Grandview estate was exactly the kind of place Emma would choose: all marble columns and crystal chandeliers, with a price tag that probably exceeded most people's annual salaries. Photographers were already capturing candid moments of the bridal party, laughing and sipping champagne in the bridal suite. I knocked on the door, and Emma's maid of honour, her college roommate, Brittany, opened it with a surprised expression. "Oh, Madison, we weren't expecting you yet." "The invitation said to be here by 11 for photos," I replied, checking my phone. It was 10:20. "Right. Well, we're kind of in the middle of something," Brittany said, not moving from the doorway. Behind her, I could see Emma in her wedding dress, a confection of silk and lace that probably cost more than my car. She was surrounded by her 4 other bridesmaids, all getting touch-ups from a professional makeup artist. I gestured toward the getting ready chaos. Emma looked up from her champagne flute. "Madison, hi. Listen, we're running really tight on time here. Could you just wait outside? We'll call you when we need you for pictures." Wait outside. At my own sister's wedding, I was asked to wait outside like hired help. I spent the next hour sitting on a bench in the hallway, watching vendors rush past with last-minute deliveries and adjustments. Other wedding guests began arriving, elegant women in designer dresses and men in tailored suits. A few people I recognized from family gatherings nodded politely, but didn't stop to chat. Finally, Brittany emerged from the bridal suite. "Okay, Madison, we're ready for family photos now." The photo session was a masterclass in strategic positioning. I was placed at the far edge of every group shot, partially hidden behind other bridesmaids or family members. In the traditional sister photo, Emma angled her body away from me, her smile bright for the camera, but never reaching her eyes when she looked in my direction. "Could we get one with just the sisters?" the photographer asked. Emma hesitated. "Actually, let's skip that one. We're running behind schedule." The ceremony itself was a blur of white roses, string quartets, and Emma gliding down the aisle like she was born for this moment. I stood with the other bridesmaids, holding my bouquet and trying to look happy while feeling like an actress playing a role I'd never auditioned for. During the vows, Emma spoke about Robert being her chosen family and how grateful she was to find someone who truly understands and values her. The emphasis on those words felt deliberate, like a message directed specifically at me. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom, with round tables draped in ivory linens and centerpieces that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I expected to be seated with family, or at least with people I knew. Instead, I found my place card at table 12 the very back of the room, with Emma's college acquaintances and a few plus ones who looked as confused about their placement as I felt. "You're Madison, right?" asked the woman next to me, a redhead named Jennifer, who worked with Emma at her part-time marketing job. "Emma's mentioned you." I wondered what exactly Emma had said, but before I could ask, the best man began tapping his champagne flute for the toasts. Speech after speech praised Emma's kindness, her beauty, her perfect match with Robert. Her college friends shared stories about late-night study sessions and spring break adventures. Robert's brother talked about how Emma had seamlessly fit into their family traditions. Not a single speaker mentioned Emma having a sister. As the evening progressed, I watched my family laughing and dancing, celebrating Emma's new beginning. Mom dabbed tears during the father-daughter dance. Dad beamed with pride as he welcomed Robert to the family. Even distant relatives seemed to be having the time of their lives. I felt like a ghost haunting someone else's party. Around 9 o'clock, after the cake cutting and the bouquet toss, which Emma threw deliberately in the opposite direction from where I was standing, I decided I'd fulfilled my obligation. I'd shown up, played my part, and could now leave with my conscience clear. I was gathering my purse from table 12 when the music shifted to something slower, more romantic. Emma and Robert were having another dance, this one more intimate than their formal first dance. They were whispering to each other, laughing at private jokes, completely absorbed in their bubble of happiness. Something about the scene, maybe the way Emma threw her head back and laughed, or the way Robert spun her around like she was the centre of his universe, triggered something in me. A memory of us as kids dancing to Disney songs in our living room, taking turns being the princess while the other played the prince. Without thinking, I stood up and walked toward the edge of the dance floor. Not to interrupt, just to watch, to maybe feel connected to this moment that should have been ours, to share as sisters. I raised my champagne flute, thinking I might offer a quiet toast to their happiness. "To Emma and Robert," I said softly, not loud enough to interrupt their dance, but hoping maybe someone nearby would hear and we could share in this moment together. That's when Emma noticed me. Her expression changed instantly, morphing from blissful bride to something cold and sharp. She stopped dancing and whispered something urgent in Robert's ear. He looked confused, but stepped back as she walked directly toward me. "What are you doing?" she hissed, her voice low but venomous. I thought I'd offer a toast," I stammered, suddenly feeling foolish with my raised glass. "A toast?" Emma's voice rose slightly. "You've been sitting in the back all night like you don't want to be here, and now you want to give a toast?" The music was still playing, but I could feel other guests starting to notice our exchange. Mum and Dad were looking over from their table, concern creasing their faces. "Emma, I just wanted to wish you happiness," I said quietly. "You're my sister." That's when she said it, the words that would change everything between us forever. Sister? Emma's laugh was bitter and sharp. You stopped being my sister the day you manipulated Grandma Rose into leaving you everything. You want to know what I really think about family, Madison. You're not family anymore. The declaration rang across the ballroom. Conversation stopped. The band played on for a few more measures before trailing off into confused silence. Every single person in that room, 200 wedding guests, vendors, family members, was staring at us. But Emma wasn't done. She turned and made eye contact with the security guards stationed near the entrance. With a subtle nod and that same pointed finger she'd used to direct vendors all day, she gestured toward me. "Security!" she called out, her voice carrying clearly in the silent ballroom. Please, escort this person out. She's disturbing my wedding reception." The security guards approached with professional efficiency, their black suits cutting through the crowd of stunned wedding guests. I felt every eye in the ballroom burning into me as they flanked my sides, not touching, but making their presence unmistakably clear. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us," the taller guard said quietly, his voice respectful but firm. The walk to the exit felt like it lasted hours. 200 people watching in absolute silence as I was escorted out of my own sister's wedding like some kind of criminal. My heels clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing in the vast ballroom. I caught glimpses of shocked faces, distant relatives with their mouths agape, Emma's college friends whispering behind their hands, Mom covering her face in what I assumed was embarrassment. At the ornate front doors of the Grandview estate, the security guard paused. "Do you have a way to get home, Mom?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. My car was in the parking lot, and somehow I managed to walk to it with whatever dignity I had left. Once inside, I sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes, hands shaking too badly to start the engine. The pink bridesmaid dress suddenly felt like it was suffocating me. I drove home in a daze, the events replaying in my mind like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Emma's voice echoing, "You're not family anymore." The way she'd pointed at me like I was a stranger who'd crashed her party. The faces of people I'd known my entire life watching me get thrown out without a single person standing up to say, "Wait, that's her sister." My apartment felt hollow when I walked in. I hung the pink dress in my closet and stared at it for a long time, wondering if I'd ever be able to look at that colour again without feeling sick. Monday morning brought a phone call that would change everything. "Ms. Madison Parker, this is Harold Thompson from Thompson, Williams & Associates. I need to schedule a meeting with you regarding your grandmother's estate." I recognised the name. He'd been Grandma Rose's lawyer for decades, the one who'd read her will 2 years ago. "Is everything all right, Mr. Thompson?" I thought all the estate matters were settled. There are some additional details that have come to light, particularly regarding properties and business interests your grandmother owned. "Could you come in this afternoon? It's quite urgent." His office hadn't changed since the will reading, the same heavy oak furniture and leather-bound books lining the walls. But Mr. Thompson looked more serious than I remembered, and he had a thick folder spread across his desk. "Madison, I need to discuss something your grandmother specifically instructed me not to reveal until after Emma's wedding. She was very particular about the timing." He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. Your grandmother owned significantly more assets than were disclosed in the initial will reading. She was quite concerned about how this information might affect Emma's wedding plans, so she asked me to wait. My heart started racing. What kind of assets? Well, for starters, the Grandview estate, where Emma's wedding was held yesterday. Your grandmother purchased it 15 years ago as an investment property. She's been the silent owner while a management company handled the day-to-day operations. The room seemed to tilt slightly. The wedding venue? Yes, she also owns 3 other commercial properties in the area, including the boutique hotel where your family likely stayed for the wedding. The total value of these additional holdings is approximately $3.2 million, all of which now belongs to you. I stared at the papers he was sliding across the desk: property deeds, business contracts, financial statements. My name appeared as the new owner of an empire I never knew existed. There's more, Mr. Thompson continued. Your grandmother had been quietly supporting Emma financially for years. Her apartment rent, car payments, credit card bills, even funding for those business ventures that never succeeded. She felt guilty about the disparity, but wanted to see if Emma would mature into responsibility. The support was scheduled to end after the wedding regardless. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Emma's entire lifestyle, her ability to afford designer clothes and expensive adventures, the financial security that had allowed her to focus on landing a wealthy husband instead of building a career, all of it had been subsidized by Grandma Rose. And now, with Grandma gone and the secret support ended, Emma and her new husband would be facing reality very soon. Why didn't Grandma tell me any of this? Mr. Thompson smiled sadly. She said you were the only one who loved her without wanting anything in return. She didn't want that to change. But she also wanted you to have the power to make your own choices about your family relationships. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Grandma Rose's familiar handwriting. She left this for you to read after I explained everything. Inside was a letter dated just 2 weeks before her death. My dearest Madison, if you're reading this, then Harold has told you about the properties and the extent of what I'm leaving you. I kept these secrets not to deceive you, but to protect the pure love we shared from being tainted by money concerns. I've watched your family treat you as the forgotten daughter for far too long. They've taken your strength and generosity for granted, assuming you would always be there to absorb their neglect and criticism without complaint. The Grandview estate has special significance. I bought it the year you graduated from college, the day your family missed your graduation for Emma's stomachache. I thought someday it might be where you'd hold your own wedding, surrounded by people who truly value you. What happened there at Emma's wedding was unconscionable, though not unexpected. I've given you the tools to decide how you want to respond. You owe them nothing, but you have the power to choose everything. Remember, darling, that sometimes the greatest gift we can give others is allowing them to face the consequences of their choices. With all my love and faith in your strength, Grandma Rose. I read the letter 3 times before the full weight of the situation settled in. Emma had just thrown me out of a venue I actually owned. She'd humiliated me in front of 200 people in a building that belonged to me. But more than that, I now had leverage I'd never possessed before. The power to make choices instead of just enduring whatever my family decided to dish out. Mr. Thompson, what exactly does owning the Grandview estate mean in practical terms? He consulted his files. You're the sole proprietor. All events bookings, all contracts, all financial decisions go through you or your designated management company. The wedding yesterday generated approximately $50,000 in revenue for various services: catering, flowers, photography coordination, liquor service. $50,000 for one day, money that was now legally mine, earned from my sister's wedding, where she declared I wasn't family anymore. Is there anything preventing me from visiting the property today? Of course not. It's yours. I can call ahead and let the management know you'll be stopping by. An hour later, I was pulling into the circular driveway of the Grandview estate, but this time as the owner rather than an unwelcome guest. The venue manager, Patricia Henderson, met me at the front entrance with an expression of nervous confusion. Ms. Parker, I had no idea you were the owner when you were here yesterday. If we had known, you had no way of knowing, I assured her. My grandmother preferred to keep her business interests private. Patricia walked me through the property, explaining operations and showing me spaces I hadn't seen during the wedding. The estate was even more impressive than I'd realised. Multiple event spaces, commercial kitchens, luxury bridal suites, and beautifully landscaped grounds. We're actually booked solid through the next 18 months, Patricia mentioned as we toured the main ballroom where I'd been humiliated less than 24 hours earlier. It's one of the most sought-after venues in the region. What about the wedding yesterday? How did that booking come about? Patricia consulted her tablet. The Cambridge family has been clients for years. They've held several events here. The booking was made 8 months ago, paid in full up front. Paid in full $50,000 that Emma's new in-laws had spent on a venue I owned, while Emma was declaring me not family anymore. We were finishing the tour when Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and looked puzzled. That's odd. I just received a complaint about yesterday's wedding. Apparently there was some kind of family dispute that disrupted the reception. I felt my cheeks burn. What kind of complaint? Robert Cambridge's mother is claiming that inadequate security allowed an uninvited guest to disturb the event. She's demanding a partial refund and threatening to leave negative reviews. The irony was almost too perfect. Emma's new mother-in-law was complaining about me to my own venue, demanding money back for my own presence at my sister's wedding. Patricia, I need you to pull all the documentation from yesterday's event. Every contract, every payment, every correspondence with the Cambridge family. That evening, I sat in my apartment with the wedding contracts spread across my coffee table. The booking agreement was signed by Robert Cambridge Sr. It's with a clause that any disturbances or damages caused by the wedding party would result in forfeiture of the deposit and potential additional fees. Emma had created a disturbance by having her own sister removed from the premises. Technically, she'd breached the contract, but as I read through Grandma Rose's letter again, I realised this wasn't really about money or contracts or legal technicalities. This was about 28 years of being treated like I didn't matter, culminating in being declared not family anymore in front of hundreds of people. Emma wanted me out of the family? Fine. But she was about to learn what it actually meant to lose me as a sister. The next morning, I called Mr. Thompson. I want to exercise my rights as the venue owner. The Cambridge family breached their contract by creating a disturbance that required security intervention. I'm keeping their deposit and charging them additional fees for the disruption. That's certainly within your legal rights, he confirmed. What additional fees are we talking about? Damage to the venue's reputation, additional security costs, and clean-up fees. Let's say another $50,000. There was a pause. Madison, that's a substantial amount. Are you sure you want to take this step? I thought about Emma pointing at me like I was a stranger. I thought about sitting alone at table 12 while my family celebrated without me. I thought about 28 years of being the forgotten daughter. I'm sure. The call came 2 days later. Mum's voice was tight with panic when I answered. Madison, there's been some terrible mistake. Robert's family received a bill from the wedding venue claiming Emma caused a disturbance. They're demanding $100,000 in total. This is ridiculous. We need you to call them and explain that you're Emma's sister. But Mom, I said calmly, according to Emma, I'm not family anymore. She made that very clear in front of 200 witnesses. Madison, don't be dramatic. Emma was just upset about the stress of the wedding day. You know how brides get emotional. So emotional that she had security escort her own sister out of the reception. There was silence on the other end of the line. The venue owners are being completely unreasonable, Mum continued, her voice taking on that familiar pleading tone she used when she needed me to fix something. Could you call them? You're good with this kind of thing. You could explain that it was all a misunderstanding. Actually, Mum, I can't help with this one. What do you mean you can't help? Madison, this is your sister's marriage we're talking about. Robert's family is furious. They're saying Emma's family caused a scene at their venue and now they have to pay damages. This could ruin Emma's relationship with her new in-laws. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry to hear Emma is having difficulties, but she made it very clear that I'm not part of the family anymore. I wouldn't want to overstep by getting involved in family business. Madison Parker, stop being so stubborn and help your sister. I can't help someone who isn't my sister, Mum. Emma was very specific about that. The line went quiet except for Mum's rapid breathing. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder, more calculating. What do you want? Excuse me? To fix this mess. What do you want from us? Money? An apology? What's your price? Her question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Even now, even when they needed me, Mum assumed my motivations were transactional. That I was holding my help hostage for personal gain, just like they'd accused me of doing with Grandma Rose. There is no price, Mom. There's no negotiation. Emma made a choice when she had me thrown out of her wedding. Actions have consequences. This is insane. You're willing to destroy your sister's marriage over some petty wedding drama? I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply not fixing problems that aren't mine to fix. Emma wanted to cut me out of the family, and now she's learning what that actually means. I hung up before Mom could respond. Over the next week, the calls came regularly. First Mom, then Dad, then Emma herself, her voice desperate and tearful. Robert's family was indeed furious about the venue charges. They'd hired their own lawyer to fight the fees, but the contract was airtight. Emma's behaviour had technically voided their agreement, and the venue had every right to seek additional compensation. But the money wasn't even the worst part for Emma. Robert's mother had started asking pointed questions about the Parker family's stability and whether Emma came from the right kind of people. The woman who'd been so excited to marry into the Cambridge family was suddenly being treated like a liability. Emma's tearful voicemail on Thursday broke my heart, even though I'd steeled myself against feeling sorry for her. Madison, please, I'm begging you. Robert's mum is saying terrible things about our family. She thinks we're trashy people who cause scenes at weddings. She's talking about how this reflects on their family reputation. I made a mistake, okay? I was stressed and I said things I didn't mean. But please don't let my marriage fall apart over this. Please. For just a moment I felt that familiar tug of sympathy. The automatic instinct to fix things, to sacrifice my own feelings, to make everything okay for everyone else. It would be so easy to make one phone call and make this all disappear. But then I remembered the feeling of walking out of that ballroom with security guards on either side of me. I remembered 28 years of being the afterthought, the forgotten daughter, the one who was expected to understand and forgive and accommodate everyone else's needs while having none of my own acknowledged. Emma had drawn a line. She'd publicly declared I wasn't family anymore. Now she was learning what life looked like on the other side of that line. On Friday evening, exactly 1 week after the wedding, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Emma standing on my doorstep alone, still wearing her wedding ring but looking haggard in a way I'd never seen before. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Madison, she said immediately, I know you're angry with me. I know I said horrible things at the wedding, but this has gone too far. Robert's family is talking about annulment. They're saying I deceived them about my family background. And what family background is that, Emma? They think we cause problems, that we're not the kind of people they want associated with their name. Her voice cracked. Robert's mother asked him if he was sure he wanted to be married to someone whose own sister had to be thrown out of the wedding. The irony was almost poetic. Emma had spent years trying to distance herself from me, treating me like an embarrassment, and now my absence was threatening the very social status she'd worked so hard to achieve. I don't understand what this has to do with me, I said calmly. I'm not family anymore, remember. Stop saying that, Emma's composure finally cracked completely. You're my sister. You've always been my sister. I was just angry and stressed and... No, Emma, you weren't just angry. You were cruel. You had me escorted out of your wedding by security guards in front of 200 people. You declared publicly and deliberately that I wasn't family anymore. You can't take that back just because it's inconvenient now. Tears were streaming down her face, ruining what was left of her makeup. What do you want me to do? Get on my knees and beg? I'll do it. I'll apologize to everyone at the wedding if that's what it takes. I don't want your apology, Emma. I don't want your begging. I want you to understand something. For 28 years, I've been the daughter who accommodated everyone else's needs, the sister who understood when she was forgotten, who smiled when she was overlooked, who fixed problems she didn't create. I was the strong one, remember? She nodded desperately. Well, I'm done being strong for people who don't appreciate it. I'm done fixing things for people who treat me like I don't matter. You wanted me out of your family? Congratulations. You got exactly what you asked for. I started to close the door, but Emma put her hand against it. Please, Madison, I love Robert. I can't lose him over this. For the first time in our entire conversation, I felt genuinely sad for her. Not sympathetic enough to fix her problems, but sad that it had come to this. Then you shouldn't have risked losing him over throwing me out of your wedding. I closed the door and turned off the porch light, leaving Emma standing alone in the darkness. That night, I sat in my apartment looking through old photo albums. Pictures of Emma and me as children, dressed up for Halloween, opening Christmas presents, building sandcastles at the beach. 2 little girls who had no idea they'd grow up to be strangers. But as I looked at those photos, I realized something important. I wasn't destroying our relationship. I was finally acknowledging that it had been destroyed a long time ago, bit by bit, slight by slight, until there was nothing left but obligation and habit. Emma had just been honest enough to say out loud what had been true for years. We weren't really family anymore. We were just people who shared DNA and a last name. The difference was, now I was finally accepting that truth instead of fighting to change it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Robert Cambridge. I think we need to talk. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. I'm sorry, but I don't have anything to discuss with you. Your wife made it very clear that I'm not family anymore. His response came quickly. That's exactly what I want to talk about.